everybody. It's Mrs. Spinelli here. I'm actually in my bedroom, so I have a little peace and quiet. And I'm going to read to you chapters 2 and 3 of Spadefoot Toad. So let's jump in. If you would join me for chapter 2 on page 12. Geography is the last class of the day. Ben stares out of the classroom window at the rain beating against the glass. He can hear it on the roof, too, and see it making the puddles on the playground dance. It's rained or snowed or sleeted just about every day since he moved to Massachusetts. Mrs. Kutcher holds up a sheet of paper. This is the most important project of the year, she says. We've been studying different ecosystems and biomes all year, and now you get to choose your favorite one. You'll need to use your reading and writing and research skills and everything you've learned about different ecosystems. You'll have 2 months to do it. But you should start working on it now. A project this big can't be done last minute. Mrs. Kutcher gives the first person in each row a stack of information pages to pass back. Ben stares at Jenny's long black hair while he waits. It's always straight and neat, like she brushes it 1,000 times every morning. Jenny takes a sheet, then turns to hand the stack to Ben with a smile. She has a gap between her 2 front teeth that makes her smile relaxed and friendly, which seems different from her neat, combed hair. Jenny turns back and picks up the book she was reading. She's a book sponge. Some kids read 1 book every 2 weeks. She reads one every other day. In fact, she reads so much that she gets in trouble for it, which seems pretty funny to Ben. Teachers are always telling you how important reading is, and then when you actually read a lot, you get in trouble for it. But Jenny's head is always buried in a book, and it's usually a book that doesn't have anything to do with what we're studying. Mrs. Kutcher almost always has a book on her desk that she's taken away from Jenny during health or geography or even reading. Jenny is smart in a very weird way. Not in the way of always doing exactly the right thing in school. She's smart in seeing the world in a way others don't. Like she has her head tilted to one side a little and looks at the world from a different angle. Jenny turns back to Ben again, still wearing her gap-toothed grin. "What did Mrs. Tibbet say to you?" she whispers. Ben shrugs. "Did you get into trouble?" Ben shakes his head. "I don't think so. It seemed like she was mad, but then she didn't do anything. She told me not to touch the mice. I wondered what she uses for them. My brother—" "Excuse me, Jenny," Mrs. Kutcher interrupts their conversation. "Could you please turn around and pay attention? I'm not just talking to hear my own voice." Jenny gives Ben another quick smile and turns around. Ben feels his face turn red. He looks at the assignment sheet. Geography Project, Exploring World Ecosystems. Your major report for the spring will be on ecosystem anywhere in the world. In that report, you should explain the following: what and where the ecosystem is, what the climate is like, which plants and animals are part of it, how it fits in with the other ecosystems of the world. Please also discuss what makes the ecosystem a unique place and what threatens it. The report should be 3 to 5 pages in length. Please include artwork, charts, or models that will help us understand the special nature of your habitat. You may choose your own topic or ask me for help in selecting one. The project is due Friday, June 5th. Ben knows right away what topic he wants to do. Other kids are looking at their papers, and some are already waving their hands in the air. "Mrs. Kutcher, can I do the rainforest in Costa Rica?" Jenny asks. The teacher nods. "That's what I wanted to do," someone whines without waiting to be called on. 3 or 4 other kids join in, like the rainforest is the only interesting place in the world. Frankie Murley shouts out, "I want the beach where I can see bikinis." His buddies break out laughing. Mrs. Kutcher shoots Frankie a look, but he doesn't seem to care. He scored points with his friends. Ben isn't interested in the rainforest or the beach. He shoots his hand up in the air, and Mrs. Kutcher calls on him. Can I do the desert? He asks. The Sonorian Desert in Arizona? Sure, says Mrs. Kutcher. You must know a lot about that already. Ben nods. Who ever heard of a snoring desert? Frankie shouts, and the same crew of boys snicker. Sonoran, Ben pronounces the word slowly. It's the name of the desert around where I lived in Tucson. Sonoran? Snoring? Frankie sneers. Whatever. It's all he ever talks about. Who cares about Tucson anyway? Ben pretends he doesn't hear. Jenny looks back at Ben and rolls her eyes. He shrugs. He wonders if it's true. Is it all he ever talks about? Maybe so, he thinks. And it's no wonder. Tucson sure was better than here, especially with kids like Frankie around. Finally, he sneaks a glance at Frankie, who's smirking at his friends. Tommy Miller reacts across the aisle and gives him a high five. Jenny mouths these words to Ben. He's an idiot. Mrs. Kutcher raises her voice, trying to get the class back on track. That's enough for now. I'll have a little conference with each of you to find out what you'd like to do. I have a list of ecosystems, and I'm sure each one of you can find an interesting one that no one else is doing. She looks at the clock and says, okay, class, pack your things. It's nearly time to go. All the way to the snoring desert, Frankie taunts. You can't win with Frankie, and Ben knows it. He keeps his mouth shut and concentrates on stuffing his notebooks and his books into his backpack. I'm close to the bottom of page 16. Make sure you're still with me. By the time Ben gets on the bus, most of the seats are taken. All of the fifth graders are in the back of the bus where they always sit. Ryan's back there too and calls to him, but Ben chooses a seat halfway back with a third grader he doesn't know. Ben's sister Agatha is on the bus too. She's sitting in the front with Rory, Ryan's sister. They're both in second grade. Agatha and Rory are laughing and talking with the kids in the seat behind them as the bus pulls out of the school circle, and Ben wonders why it's so easy for his sister to make friends. It's like she's lived in Edinburgh forever. Maybe it's because she talks so much. Ben looks out the window. He doesn't see that much point in talking unless it's about something important. At about the third stop on the route, Ryan lurches down the aisle. When he gets to Ben's seat, he peers down at him with his good eye. See you tomorrow, Ben. Ben nods and quickly looks out the window again. Then Ben hears Frankie's voice. Arr, Captain Kidd! Captain Kidd! Goodbye, Captain Kidd! Ben can't help but looking back. Frankie's got his hand over one eye like a patch. A couple of other boys are laughing. Ben turns in time to see Ryan getting off the bus. His head is down and his ears are bright red. Frankie and his buddies are already ragging on one of the fourth graders. When the bus comes to the stop at the end of Ben's street, he steps out the door into the drizzling rain. Agatha is waiting for him at the bottom of the steps. Come on, Ben, let's run. I'm not running. You can if you want. But Mom said we have to walk together, Agatha says in that whiny little sister voice she was born with. Then we can walk, but we'll get wet. Agatha, go ahead and run if you want. I'm walking. Poophead, his sister says. She whirls around and takes off down the street. Ben holds his backpack on top of his head to keep the rain off and plods toward the house. The entire sky is gray, and some of the puddles on the street are deep. His feet get wet, even though he's watching where he's stepping. The grass in the yards is beginning to turn green again, but there are no leaves on the trees yet. He peers up from under his backpack. The tree branches hang over the street. There are tons more here than in Arizona. He tries to imagine all the branches filled with leaves. Ben cuts around the yard to avoid a big puddle on the sidewalk. The ground is like a soaked sponge. The water wells up around his shoes. The smell of the wet earth fills the heavy air. He's never seen this much water lying around before. The desert has gentle rains in the winter and hard, huge thunderstorms in the summer. But the rain soaks into the dry earth or runs off in a matter of hours. It never stays around for long. Ben used to love big thunderstorms. He could always smell them coming. The wind whipped up in front of them as the storms rolled across the desert floor and the clouds rose higher and higher in the sky. Out there, everything races and crashes and breathes like it's a living thing, he thinks. Here in Massachusetts, the rain just goes on and on. Nothing very exciting about that. Thinking about the thunderstorms reminds Ben of the things from his bedroom that got lost in the move. He collected most of them himself, but some of the best stuff came from the Desert Museum. Mr. Thompson had given him a rabbit skull and a fossil of a trilobite, a sea creature from millions of years ago. But his favorite thing was the shed skin from a king snake. Ben had watched the snake in the display case at the museum for over an hour while it wiggled out of its old skin and left it behind. Its head and body emerged with new skin, and it was bright and shiny and vibrant. It was one of the most amazing things that Ben had ever seen. Mr. Thompson gave him the dried old crinkly skin that stretched out even longer than the 3-foot snake itself. But it wasn't just the displays and creatures in the museum that made it so great. Even better were all the things he learned there about the desert. And the more he knew, the more he wanted to know. Every time he went to the museum, he peppered Mr. Thompson and the other guides with 1,000 questions. Ben, his mother had said, you'll drive them crazy. But Mr. Thompson and the others seemed happy to share what they knew. That's what we're here for, the old man had said. The guides taught Ben to be watchful and patient when he was outside. Nature shows itself when you give it time. There are a lot of critters out there, Mr. Thompson had said, and you'll see them if you know how to be still and wait. Ben had learned to be patient. In Arizona, he'd grab a snack after school, then walk down to the river wash at the end of his street. There were new houses going up, but behind them there was just open space, the desert stretching out and up into the foothills of the mountains west of Tucson. After the area's big thunderstorms, the river ran through the wash, creating a lush place for trees and plants that wouldn't last a week in the dry ground 100 yards away. Ben had a favorite waiting place in the river wash, a big rock in the shade of a cottonwood tree. He would sit there not moving at all, and after a while, he'd always see something. Mice were regulars, and ground squirrels and lizards. Sometimes he saw, javelinas, small wild pigs, snorting and scurrying from one bush to another. And on a few lucky occasions, he saw snakes. The more he watched and waited, the more animals he saw and learned to identify. One Saturday, when he was at home, he heard his mother give a little yelp as she walked into the laundry room. Ben ran to see what was wrong. "It's a frog," she said, pointing in the corner. Ben looked closely. "No, Mom, it's a toad," he said. "It's a Colorado river toad." "I don't care what it is," his mom said. "I don't want it anywhere near my washing machine." The large squat toad sat in the corner looking perfectly happy to be there. "He won't hurt anything," Ben said, "and he'll eat the spiders." Ben talked his parents into leaving the toad there for several days. He was happy, and so was the toad, but his mom wasn't. Ben finally carefully scooped it into a box, took it back down to the river wash, and let it go. "Ben's toad removal," his father had quipped. In Arizona, Ben spent as much time outside as he could. Most of the kids from school were busy doing other things, either playing sports or staying inside with their computers and TVs. But Ben didn't really like team sports, although he was big for his age and people always wanted him on their teams. And he couldn't stand spending too much time inside. It made him feel like he was wasting the day, wasting the sun. He liked being outside by himself or with someone who liked the outdoors as much as he did. Toby was the only other kid he knew who was happy spending the day exploring the nearby desert. Ben and Toby had started a collection of things they'd found. They got a terrarium and put things in it and named it Desert World. They filled the bottom with sand and some rocks and then planted a few small cactuses and turned it into a sort of ant farm. An ant and stink bug farm, actually. Ben loved catching stink bugs. funny little critters that lifted their back ends high in the air when they thought they were being attacked. But the main inhabitant of the desert world was Lenny, a western banded gecko. Toby and Ben had spent hours watching the small, quick lizard as it scurried around its little home, dining on the stink bugs and grasshoppers they fed it. But Ben had to leave all that behind in Tucson. Now Toby was caring for Lenny and everything else in Desert World. Maybe, Ben thinks, the moving people have found the box, and I'll get my collection of rocks and bugs back, and my books and posters. So that was chapter 2, and then we have an interesting look in that chapter back into Ben's life in Tucson. And I think that chapter will really make sense as the book continues. So here we go, chapter 3. I am on page 23. By the time Ben reaches his driveway, his sneakers are soaked. He splashes in every puddle on the way up the driveway and comes in the side door into the kitchen. Agatha's already sitting at the kitchen table having a snack. She's got crackers lined up carefully on one side of her placemat and slices of cheese on the other, and she's putting them together one at a time, singing a song she made up. Cracker, 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 cheese, cheese, cheese. Put them both together, remember not to sneeze. Dumb song, Ben says. I know, she says. It doesn't bother her at all. She stops her cracker and cheese game and holds up a note. This says that Mom will be home in an hour, Agatha announces. She left us cheese and crackers. Let me see, Ben says, reaching for the note. He reads it, hoping it will say something about his missing box. No such luck. Nothing but crackers and cheese and do the chores. Ben tosses his backpack on the kitchen chair and walks through the house, looking to see if the box has arrived. He runs up the stairs to his bedroom. No box there either. The room feels empty and lonely. The walls are bare except for a Boston Red Sox poster his father put up. Ben has always been an Arizona Diamondbacks fan, but his dad has promised to take him to see the Red Sox. Darn, Ben says loudly, wishing somebody was there to hear. It didn't come. Now he's in a bad mood. He goes back downstairs and heads to the kitchen for his snack. Agatha has finished her snack. She's brushing the cracker crumbs into a pile in the middle of her placemat. Want to play a game? She asks. No, Ben says. He doesn't feel like any kind of game. Where's the rest of the crackers and cheese? I ate them. I thought you didn't want any because you went upstairs. Ben groans and opens a cabinet door. He pulls out a box of cereal and pours some of it in his hand, then wolfs it down dry. Want to watch TV? We're not supposed to on school days, Ben says. You know that. Want to draw pictures? No. Want to say no all the time? Agatha is just trying to be annoying. She has a radar that tells her exactly how to annoy her older brother. What I want is for you to be quiet once, he says. I can't. It's impossible. I have to breathe, and breathing makes sound, so I can't be quiet. Maybe you could stop breathing. Maybe you're a grouch, Agatha says. Because you're a pest, Ben shouts. He looks out the kitchen window. If it were Tucson, he'd go outside, but he can't leave Agatha alone, and it's raining anyway. He's trapped. Help, he bellows. I'm trapped in Massachusetts in a house with a dumb sister. I'm trapped with a dumber brother, Agatha yells back. She's having a great time. I may have to hang you by your feet, Ben mutters. You're not allowed to, Agatha says. Dad said so. Ben turns on the TV. His parents have strict rules about TV during the school week, but he's so annoyed he doesn't care. Agatha hears it and comes into the room. Hey, she said. You said not to watch TV, and now you're doing it. It's so I don't murder you. You can't murder me either, Agatha says. It's against the law. She sits on the floor and stares at the screen. Before Ben knows it, they're both lost in the program, and then his mother is standing in the doorway of the family room. Why is the television on? She asks. Ben turned it on, said Agatha. What's going on here, Ben? Her mother asks. You know the rules. I know, he says, but Agatha was driving me crazy. And we can't go outside because it's raining, like always. And I couldn't find my box of stuff. Did it come? No, she says. Did you call the moving company again? I forgot. his mother says. Mom! Ben can hear the whine in his voice, but he can't help it. I'm sorry, Ben. I'll call them in a minute. Did you have a snack yet? Someone did, Ben says, glaring at Agatha. His mother goes up to the TV set and turns it off, but before she gets there, Ben flicks it off with the remote. Do you have much homework, she asks. Just some dumb math problems, he says. Well, why don't you do it now? I don't feel like it. He gets up from the couch and starts to walk out of the room. Oh, Ben, his mother exclaims, your shoes are all muddy. That's because I live in the rainforest, Ben says. He's a big grouch, Agatha says. Ever since we moved here, he's been a big, grumpy grouch. Ben is out of the room now, but he hears what his sister is saying. I wonder why, he yells back. Maybe because I hate this place? Ben! His mother is mad now, and Ben knows it. It takes a lot to make her mad, and now he's on the verge of some serious trouble. But he doesn't stop. He has to get out of the house. He doesn't care if it's still raining. He doesn't care if his feet are wet and muddy. He doesn't care about anything but getting away for a while. He pulls on his hooded jacket and goes out to the kitchen door. He figures he'll have to pay for yelling and walking out when he gets back, but he doesn't care. The rain splatters on the hood of his jacket as he circles around to the back of the house and stands there looking across the yard. It stretches 25 yards to a line of tall trees. Beyond that, the land slopes gently downward to some woods. Ben's been back there once or twice, but he's never gotten very far because the ground is so soggy. Now he doesn't care if it's soggy. He just wants to go somewhere, anywhere. He slogs across the lawn and passes underneath the trees. He squeezes through the shrubs that mark the back edge of the yard and peers into the woods. It's getting darker, but he can see what looks like a faint path. A path he's never noticed before. His heart beating fast, he starts down the path. The rain trickles off his hood onto his nose and seeps through the shoulders of his jacket. He doesn't care. So what if he gets soaked? He walks slowly, willing himself to calm down and stay quiet. After a few yards, his heartbeat returns to a normal pace and his mind stops racing quite so much. Then he stops. Did he hear something? He stands still and listens. It wasn't the rain hitting the branches overhead, or the sound of his feet scuffling on the wet ground, or even his breathing. The faint noise begins again. It sounds like something calling, something living. A little shudder runs down Ben's spine, but he follows the path, moving farther away from the house. He has to fight his way through the underbrush, and twice he has to double back to find a place where his sneakers don't sink into the muddy ground. Guided by the sounds, he pushes through to an open space that's even wetter. Thin trees stand lone and bare in several shallow pools where the raindrops are making circles upon circles on the surface. Here and there he sees green clumps of moss, but otherwise everything is brown and gray. Ben stands still. It's now completely silent again. He likes being out here by himself. It's not the desert, but he's alone and outside. He doesn't mind the rain. His feet are cold and wet, but they'll get dry again. Ben listens. He shivers a little, wondering how long he can stay outside and what he'll say when he gets back to the house. It's getting darker. Then he hears it. One silvery whistle, a chirp, a peep. Ben listens harder. It's not a bird. It sounds again, and then very close to him, another one sounds. He turns to look, but can't see anything. The noise seems to be coming from a clump of dead grass sticking out of the marsh. It's a clear, bell-like chirp, rising in pitch. It seems out of place in this dull gray landscape. Then something moves at his feet. Ben almost jumps out of his skin, but when he looks down, he can't see anything. A tingle goes up the back of his neck. Maybe it's a snake. Then it moves again, and Ben makes out a camouflage shape amongst the brown and dirty green of the earth and plants. He leans over. It's a frog. He picks it up. Ben holds the creature in his hand until it calms down. He cups it with one hand and uses the fingers of his others to hold it carefully right in front of its back legs. like they showed him at the Desert Museum. It squirms in his hand, but Ben doesn't let go. He looks at it closely. He knows it's a frog and not a toad. Its skin is smooth and its legs are long. He has no idea what kind of frog it is. He's never seen one like it before. It's got ridges on its back and a black mask around its eyes, like a bandit. The rain continues to fall. His sneakers feel heavy and squishy on his feet. Ben strokes the frog's back, wondering if this was the thing that made the silvery chirp he had just heard. He holds the frog up to his face and looks at it closely. It just sits there. It doesn't seem to care if Ben holds him or not. Ben knows the frog is sluggish because it's cold-blooded, like snakes or lizards. It can't move very fast when it's really cold. The frog flattens itself in its hand. Ben! Ben! Benny! Ben! Ben! Ben hears his father's voice calling through the growing darkness. Growing darkness. He's singing the name like it's part of a song, and Ben can't help but smile. His father's a great joker, and it sounds like he's in a good mood. The beam from the flashlight bobs up and down in the distance, coming toward him. In the dark, it almost looks like a ghost. Ben shivers again. It's time to go back. Just as he's getting ready to plop the frog back into the puddle, Ben thinks of Mrs. Tibbets with her long gray hair and her hiking boots. He wonders what she would think of what he just found. He cradles the creature in both hands a moment longer, then slips it into his jacket pocket. "Come on, Mr. Frog," he says. "Pack your bags. It's time to move." Then he calls out, "Coming!" and plunges through the bushes and back onto the path. He finds his dad walking toward him, still wearing his office suit and his good raincoat. It seems funny to see him in the middle of a swamp in dress clothes. "Hey, you goofball," his father says. "Your mother sent me out here to find you. Have you noticed it's raining?" He puts his arm around Ben's shoulder and turns toward the house. "I was listening," says Ben. "To what? The rain?" Ben guesses his father isn't going to talk to him about yelling at his mom, which is good. "No, I was listening to something making a weird sound, like this high-pitched peeping." "Probably a killer snake," his father says. "Dad, there are no killer snakes here." "Yes, there are," his father says in a serious tone that shows he's kidding. "I happen to know they lie out here in this swamp behind our house, and they're 8 feet long, and they make peeping sounds right before they swallow boys who are dumb enough to stand out in the rain." "Come on, Dad," Ben says. "There was really something out there. You can hear it if you stop." Ben stops walking, and so does his father. The peeps sound faintly in the wet air. "There, hear them?" "Definitely killer snakes," his father says. "Huge ones." Ben laughs. "Snakes don't make noises like that." "Suit yourself, but don't blame me if one swallows you up. Your mother probably won't mind. One less kid to worry about." Ben doesn't respond. They start walking again. "So what's up with school?" his father asked. "Oh, it's okay," Ben says. He puts his hand on the outside of his coat pocket and feels the shape of the frog inside. "Just okay, huh?" Ben doesn't want to talk about school. "Dad, what if you don't like your job here?" "Well, the good news is that I do like it." "But what if you didn't? Or if it didn't work out just right? Would we move back to Tucson?" "No." "How come?" "Because I hate packing." "Really? How come?" "Ben, pal, this is our home now, and we're staying here." His father pulls Ben close as they come into the backyard, but Ben slips out of the hug. He doesn't want to be close. Not if they have to stay here. While everyone is getting ready for dinner, Ben goes out into the garage and hunts around until he finds a small plastic bucket. He takes the frog out of his pocket and puts it in the bucket, then covers it with a small window screen he finds leaning against the garage wall. "I don't have a good place for you, fella," he says, squatting down for a closer look. The frog sits in the bottom of the bucket, not moving. Ben thinks about taking the bucket in the house, but changes his mind. He doesn't want to explain it to Mom or have Agatha bugging him about it. Besides, he likes the idea of having something that's just his and no one else's. He decides to leave it in the garage. He'll find a better place for it tomorrow. "At least it's warmer here than outside," he says to the frog. which doesn't seem to care where it is. Ben turns off the garage lights and goes inside. After dinner, Ben goes into his bedroom to do his homework. He's barely sat down when the phone rings. "I'll get it," Ben yells, almost knocking his chair over in a hurry to get to the phone. He grabs the receiver away just as Agatha picks it up. "Hey, no fair," she whines, but Ben's already got the phone to his ear. He covers the mouthpiece. "Life's not fair," he says. She sticks out her tongue and Ben speaks into the phone. "Hello?" "Hey, Snake Man," says a voice on the other end. Ben laughs. "Toby?" "Wrong, Snake Man. This is Lizard Man." Toby is talking in a creepy, croaky voice that cracks Ben up. It makes him more homesick than ever. "Hi, Toby. How's Lenny?" Ben asks. "He's fine. Eating stink bugs and sleeping. How's everything in Massachusetts?" It's worse. It stinks worse than bugs. It's cold and wet, and the kids here are idiots." "Wow, that's too bad." "Yeah," Ben agrees. "But maybe we won't stay here for too long. Maybe we'll move back." "That'd be great. I could sure use your help. Larry Dunstan has been bothering the heck out of me." "Oh, not him," Ben snorts. "Yeah, what a turkey." They both laugh. They talk and talk until Ben's mother taps him on the shoulder. "That's enough," she says. "You've got homework." "Mom," he pleads. "It's enough for now. You can call back in a couple of days." "I gotta go, Lizard Man," Ben says. "Thanks for calling me. I'll email you, and I'll call next week, or you can call me." "Okay, pal, stay in touch. Don't let those Massachusetts kids bug you." Ben hangs up the phone. He wonders how talking to Toby can make him happy and sad at the same time. He goes to the computer in the family room and writes an email to Toby. "Lizard Man, please rescue me from the monsters in Massachusetts. Only you can save me. Desert creatures unite. Snake Man." And that is the end of chapter 3. So I know those were really long, chapters 2 and chapters 3, but they give us a lot of information, both background information about Ben. We learn our new characters, Agatha, Toby, Mom and Dad. And we get to kind of see where Ben is his happiest. And I wonder where that is. So think about that for our questions tomorrow. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.